Hey there, it's Teacher Elizabeth with another art tutorial for you. Today we're going to work with the theme of celebrating an important woman in your life. And as such, I'd like to highlight a few women from history and point out that 2020 marks 100 years since women were granted the right to vote in America. I'd like to begin with Susan B. Anthony. She was a women's rights activist and a pivotal figure in the suffragist movement. She made it possible for the ratification of the 19th Amendment in America. Next, we have Amelia Earhart. She was an aviation pioneer and the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic in 1928. Moving forward 70 years, we have Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. She was the first woman to be elected head of state of an African country and was the president of Liberia from 2007 to 2018. She received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011. Here's what you're going to make for that special woman in your life. But before we begin, I need to go through the materials list with you. You're going to need 2 sheets of paper, art paper that's thicker, and just a regular sheet of copy paper, a pencil, a set of colored pencils, a piece of ribbon, scissors, and then as an option, these water mixable oil pastels that you can find at this link. If you use these, you're also going to need a paintbrush. All right, let's start. First thing, go ahead and tilt your paper a little bit like I did. Next, you're going to draw an oval and a curlicue. So it's an oval that's sideways and a curlicue. Next, around that oval, you're going to draw a heart shape. After you draw the heart shape, you're going to thicken the heart shape just at the bottom like I'm doing here. Go ahead and pause the video to take this step. We will be taking all the steps together. Now you're going to draw the body of the rose with a big giant half circle, and then you're going to connect the bottom of the heart with the bottom of the rose using a curved line. Please pause and do this step. All right, moving on. Now we're just going to draw the little leaves that go underneath the body of the rose. They would attach to the stem, which you draw next. Moving on, we're going to go ahead and add some leaves to our rose. Each leaf will have its own stem coming off of the main stem of the rose, and then the leaf shapes just kind of mimic what you see me doing, and go ahead and make sure that some of the edges are a little bit jagged because rose leaves have a little bit of a texture on the edge. Don't worry about being perfect, just do your best. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the center rose. I want you to draw a mustache shape. And then on top of that mustache shape, you're going to draw 2 rounded triangle shapes. Go ahead and pause and take that step. Next, we're going to go for the center of the flower. So we have one of those small rounded triangles again, and then 3 half circles, and an oval inside of the smallest of those half circles. Next, I want you to draw 2 more half circles that are going to be 2 more petals on the right side of the rose. Now we're going to go for the left side of the rose, so you're going to draw 2 more of those half circles. We're going to keep going with those half circles, except add a little point on that one on the right, and add another half circle with a point on the left. Next, we'll draw a half circle petal with a point on the right, and then a little half circle underneath. Here's an example of a rose to give you an idea of what you're going for. All right, moving on to the leaves of this rose. I'm going ahead and using those rounded triangles and creating the veins going through the center. Notice I don't draw too dark. That's always problematic to get too dark because then when you color it in, sometimes the pencil lines are problematic. All right, we're doing the stem now. And we're going to go for some more of those leaf shapes. Remember, they each get their own stem, and then the shape is a rounded triangle with rough edges. Make sure to make the leaf shapes different from one another. You don't want them all to be exactly the same. So one is overlapping the other in this example. Now, Tilt your paper again so you can draw an angled rose on the right. I'm going to move through this a little more quickly because you've already done it once. It's just happening on the other side. So you drew the oval with the spiral in the center, you drew the heart shape, then you thickened the heart shape only on the bottom of the heart, then you're adding the body of the flower with the curved line that then meets the leaves that go underneath the flower, and add a stem. Always pause if it helps so that you have plenty of time to work on your drawing. You'll notice I added a couple of leaves to my final drawing. Alright, let's start with color. I went ahead and put the reference to the left, even though we're not trying to match that flower, we're just using it as an example. So the first thing I want to do is get the red loosely blocked in throughout the flower. You're going to notice that I'll make the red darker where the flower petals meet. So I put the red down first, and now I've got some purple that I'm overlapping on some of the red where the flower petals overlap or meet. They're going to create little shadows which will darken the red. Next, I'm going to use the same red, but I'm just not going to push down as hard, to lightly block in some of the flower color that won't be as dark or shadowed as some of the other areas. So essentially what we're saying here with this lighter red is that light is hitting it. And then when we add this white colored pencil on top, we're really saying that this is where the light hits. So just try to get some sort of lighting effect on your rose. Please don't worry about being perfect. This is a gift, and this is something fun to try and learn. The more times you do this, the better your outcome will be. Now I went ahead and put some pink on top of the red because I felt like the red was a little too orange. And by putting the pink, which is a little cooler, on top of the red, I'm getting something that I like a little better, so it's not quite so orangey. I'm not trying to match that reference that you see to the left of your screen. Use that picture as a guide, not something that you're trying to follow exactly. So when I'm talking about light and shadow on the red, you're going to notice there's nowhere on that flower that's white, because a lot of times we think highlight is white. But instead, it's a really light red in the light areas and a really dark red in the shadowed areas. And you want to build those light and shadowed areas slowly. Don't go to the super dark or the super light right away. All right, we're going on to the stem. You can just use green for the base color and blue for the shadow. Now I'm moving on to the leaves. Color in the leaves different kinds of greens. You pick. I'm going to make this one a little more yellow green. The next one I'm going to make more of a straight green. And that way, by not making the leaves match in color or size, you'll be able to tell the difference of one leaf from another instead of it looking like one big weird shape. Remember, shadowing also happens with the leaves, so dark greens and light greens, depending on the lighting. Okay, for those of you only using colored pencils, finish your drawing and fast forward to the end to see how to turn your picture into a gift. Want to try the water mixable oil pastels? Get those out with your paintbrush and water. Step 1, I want you to put a base of white down on the flower. See how I'm scribbling it? I'm not filling it in completely. Now I took just a tiny bit of pink and layered it on top of the white, took the paintbrush, dipped it in water, and brushed over it. I want you to do that initially just so you can see what happens when you add water to the oil pastel. Next, I added some of the pink, and now I'm adding a little bit of the blue. I'm thinking about lighting again. It's going to be darker at the base of the flower and lighter up towards the top. So I put the blue and the pink at the bottom and just the pink and the white at the top. Now I'm adding little patches of color that then I will blend with the paintbrush and water. You do not need to fill it in completely because adding water to the oil pastel makes it blend and spread. It also lightens it up. So there I got a little too much of that pink, so no worries. I just take the brush and wet it and then use it as a blending tool to lighten up the color. I'm doing the same thing at the top using the corner of the paintbrush. Now I'm using the colored pencil to refine the drawing. It's really challenging using the oil pastel in such a small shape, so I'm really counting on my paintbrush to help me detail, as well as the colored pencil to help me detail. However, with this art material and this technique, I'm not going for hyperrealism, I'm going for something a little more painterly. Alright, now we just gotta paint in the leaves and the stems. Go ahead and remember that light and shadow thing. You got shadows and light, so I got the darker green for the lower part of the leaves for the shadow and a lighter green on top. I'm detailing the veins with the colored pencil. I'm adding more light and shadow with the dark green, the light green, filling in patches of color, not filling it in completely. The wet paintbrush will blend those colors and turn them into paint. Pay attention not to blend the shadows into the highlights, because then it'll become very muddied. I'm using the paintbrush now to smooth out and blend the stem and the rest of the leaves. Alright, we're almost there. The hard part is done. Now we just got to turn this picture into a present. Go ahead and make a little gift card. Just take a piece of paper and fold it in half. Write something special on it and inside it. Next, create a little hole at the top for the ribbon to thread through by folding it and cutting a little notch. Now you will do the same thing with the final artwork, creating notches on either side of the spot where the 3 stems cross. I was just pointing at it. So cut the notches like I'm doing here. Then you're going to take the ribbon, you're going to thread it through those notches from the back. You will tie it once and thread the gift card through, and then tie a bow. Excellent job! You have created a bouquet of flowers that the special person in your life will always treasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to be creative today, and please share a picture of what you made with us.